can turn the world on with a smile. You can take a nothing day and suddenly make it all seem worthwhile. Well, it's your girl and you should know it. With each glance and every little movement you show it. Love is all around, don't need to fake it. You can never down, why don't you take it? You're gonna make it after all.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Jodie Emery Show. Today is Thursday, May 5th, and I'm leaving tomorrow for Toronto with Jeremiah Vandermeer of Cannabis Culture magazine, Dana Larson of the NDP, and Jacob Hunter and Nicole Seguin of Why Prohibition and End Prohibition. So come out and meet us there, even with our friend Brittany and a lot of other friends, including Mel Hempseed, at the Cannabis Culture Free Mark booth at the Toronto Freedom Festival this Saturday in the Queen's Park in Toronto. There'll be 40,000, up to 40,000 people in the park enjoying music and speeches. I'll be on stage for the 420 countdown, and I'll be helping lead the march with 20,000 people through the streets of Toronto. And the reason I'm so excited about this and why it means so much to me is that since 2006, Marc and I have led the parade through the streets of Toronto with all the activists and Cannabis Culture all there with us, holding our flags and chanting and going through the streets. And it's always been a really big event for us to attend. And this is the first year without Marc, because on the 10th of May we'll be celebrating the anniversary 1 year of Marc getting ordered extradited. So I'll be there at the Freedom Festival and Global Marijuana March to remind everybody about Marc and how he's not there with us, and to remember to write him letters to keep his spirits up. And on that note, please take note of the address. Send Marc a little message about how things are going, what you think of what's going on in the world, and particularly with the Canadian election results, which I'll get back to in a moment. I went to visit Marc this last weekend, and it was down to Yazoo City in Mississippi, and that was a whole new experience for me, a different prison, a different city. And it's pretty depressed down there. You know, people don't really understand how bad parts of America are, but Mississippi has the lowest literacy rates. I think half the people there can't even read, and there are people living in actual shacks. So the economic devastation that's taking place there, in combination with the massive storms that killed over 300 people and caused billions of dollars worth of damage, I got to witness firsthand how much the South and the United States is suffering when you come away from the wealthy coastlines. So it was an interesting experience because there's 3 different prisons where Marc is: a medium security, a minimum and low security, and a camp. And they're building a penitentiary that's maximum. So it's a big federal complex, and it's almost Orwellian, the huge, just concrete block buildings, really low but massive, on huge lots of property, thousands of inmates out in the yard. It looks like it's right out of a movie, you know. Back in Georgia, it was a smaller place, and it didn't really have the big, scary feeling that this federal prison does, because it's not a private prison. It's run by the government and is all American except for Marc and recently one other Canadian. So Marc is the only Canadian with one other guy out of 2,000 inmates. But he's comfortable there. Things are going fairly well. He has his own cell. He gets along with people, even though there is racial segregation, and there's a lot of tougher guys in there with lots of tattoos, and they're there for life. But, you know, even the gay people are gay and they keep to themselves, and people just generally keep to themselves. So it's, you know, not a very dangerous place. There's also commissary every single day. They can buy commissary, and they can get email. So Marc is sending me Corlink's email these days. And he's also able to get out on the track and walk around, and the food is a bit better. So he doesn't have much to complain about, because it's a lot better actually from where he was before. So keep that in mind and send him books and letters and keep his spirits up while he's in there. And, you know, visiting was a different experience for sure. It was much more intimidating, a higher level of security. But I got to sit there and look at Marc, and he looks really healthy. To me, he looks extraordinarily handsome. I was so happy to see him. I even have this dress here that kind of looks like what Marc is wearing, but he wears pants with a belt and has to have his shirt tucked in, and it kind of looks like World War II casual British military wear, you know, just really handsome looking. I was so happy to see him, and that visit meant a lot to me. So It meant a lot to him as well, and I'll be going back down there hopefully soon. But first, I'm going to be going to Toronto this weekend, like I said, and I'll be talking to the crowd about the results of the Canadian federal election, which Marc and I are obviously very disturbed about, along with most Canadians and certainly all of the cannabis culture. Stephen Harper won a majority government, and this is, in Canada, total control. We have what we call friendly fascism. The Prime Minister of Canada is able to implement any law that he wants without the opposition having a say. And even the President of the United States doesn't have that much power. So Harper promised that if he won a majority government, he would put together every crime bill he had, including mandatory minimums for pot, and that's 6 months for 6 plants, up to 9 months for 6 plants, and even more horrible sentences of years and years for hashish and being near schools and all sorts of terrible things based on U.S. drug laws. He promised that that, along with all other law bills, are going to be passed within the first 100 days. And there's not a whole lot we can do to prevent that. We can write letters. We can let our parliamentarians know, and all the NDP members who won, who have now formed the opposition for the first time in Canadian history, which is great. We can let them know our concerns and hope they stand up and fight for us, and at least let the government know that many people oppose these types of horrible, expensive, life-destroying laws. You know, it's a shame that we have now a prime minister who would rather spend our money blowing apart people's bodies overseas than healing the sick and dying here at home. A prime minister who would rather spend billions of dollars giving the police riot gear for G20-like civil rights violations, setting up prisons inside warehouses and holding people without charge. He would rather do that than send people to school to get educated and have jobs that can help this country. Stephen Harper is going to reverse Canada in so many ways, and although it's very scary, and you need to understand how bad it's going to be, and please take whatever precautions you can to protect yourself, but we have to remember that there's still hope. You know, the United States got George Bush and saw terrible things happen, but when you look to the United States now, despite all the oppression that still exists, they're able to motivate themselves and organize, and we have legalization being discussed in numerous states. We have legal medical marijuana and seeds being sold and marijuana being sold in numerous states. So even though things have gotten very bad in many ways, a lot of good things have still come out of it. And you have to remember that life is this, the yin and yang, the balance of good and bad. We're never going to reach a point of absolute positivity and ideal paradise for everybody. That's just not the path of human history, and that's not what's going to happen in the future. But what we can do with the time we have on this earth, regardless of whether we leave it in a better place or not than when we came into it, we can do what we can to try and improve our lives and the lives of others, because when it comes down to it, that's all that really matters, is looking after yourself, looking after your family and your loved ones, and then your community, and then your fellow nationwide countrymen, and then all the other people of the world. But focus on yourself and taking care of yourself first, because without that, just like they say on the airplanes, you know, help yourself before you help others. So let's use this time to regroup, look after ourselves, become strong, because tough times are ahead and there will be casualties. This is a war. Stephen Harper said it's a culture war. So we will have casualties. And I worry about that, and it's not good news. But again, there are wars where there have been many casualties, and we have still come back to some sort of peace. So let's hold on to that hope. Marc and I remain positive that with the NDP on our side in government and all of the support they've always had for getting him home and stopping these terrible drug laws and legalizing marijuana and restoring justice and liberty to our country, we have hope. We have reason to be optimistic. We can't give in to despair, because that's giving in to what Stephen Harper and our enemies want most of all, is for us to just sit back and let them mow us over. So be strong, be happy, and we can make it through this. Send a letter to Marc, look after each other. Remember to do all you can to help end this drug war. It's really down to the wire now in Canada, and we've got a rough road ahead, but together we can make it through it and hopefully have a better outcome. Free Marc Emery.